Hi, I'm Blood Moon, an Eastern Sergal. In this video, I'll dive into crafting my first set of Fursuit Paws. They definitely don't embody perfection, as I need to gain a lot more experience on a sewing machine really to get that perfection that I seek, but they should do just fine for my first FurCon, at least as a fursuiter that is, at Anthro Weekend, Utah in July 2024. The following is a list of supplies that I used for making my paws. Some fur, with some cotton fabric, measuring instruments, cutting tools, some needle and thread, pinning needles, black and gray Sharpies, a slicker brush, some sewing clips, sewing machine, and some vinyl for my paws. And probably most importantly, I went to Octavia's Creatures on Etsy and downloaded their Sergal paw pattern. If you've been following along with my series at all, I did try making a set of paws for Jinx the Wolf, but I really didn't like the way that pattern was set up, so I figured I'd give this pattern a try. I really liked the way it worked, though the pads were a little difficult for an amateur sewer like me, so they didn't really turn out great, but overall, I think they're passable. Not many people are just gonna be staring at my beans. Once I had all the template pieces cut out, I laid the fur down, ensuring that the tips of the fur were pointing towards the fingertips, and then began tracing the template and then flipping it for the other paw. I then marked small little indicators saying which paw was which, left and right. I used an X-Acto blade to cut the pattern from the fur, making sure to only cut through the backing so as not to damage any of the fibers. I then repeat the process for all the different template pieces, ensuring that I make a duplicate or a mirror image for the other paw. You'll also see that I put little notes on the pieces. These indicate what digit it is, along with what paw it belongs to. As I go along here, you could also see that I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch to maybe a 3/16 of an inch seam allowance, that way I have something to sew against without making the pattern any smaller. After all the paw pieces are cut out, I move on to tracing out claws onto the vinyl. I have the vinyl doubled upon itself, that way I can just sew along the template, and then when I cut them out, I just have to flip them inside out, leaving the vinyl facing outward. This is another one of those pieces that I just need to get a little bit better with sewing machine, just to really stay on the lines. Now it's just a lot of scissor work, cutting out the little pieces and prepping them for flipping inside out, and then stuffing them with some polyfill. Oh, Did I make it sound easy, flipping them inside out? Yeah, it's not. I ended up finding that the tip of a Sharpie helped quite a bit, but you also want to make sure that you backstitch the claws when you're doing it. That way, the pieces don't come apart when you start pushing and prying against it. The next set of fun is starting to hand stitch the top of the paw and the fingertips. I went ahead and brought these to the living room and watched a movie while I went ahead and just kept stitching away. This is one of those processes that seem like they just never really end, so I just kept going and going and going and going. I guess I should mention that I used like a blanket stitch on this. That way, it was nice and secure, and overall, they seem to hold up pretty well. The next set of fun was putting these claws into the toes. I didn't really know where the claws should sit, so I assumed that they sat right up against the end of the dart. I was wrong on most of these, as some of them stuck straight up. I guess that's a lesson learned for next time. I feel like I should emphasize that you really want to make sure those claws are really well sewn in, because just the slightest bit missed on the top or the bottom means that your claw will be a little loose and wiggly. So I did have to come back through and re-sew a lot of them just to make sure that they were nice and tight. I got these little 8x10 sheets or so of vinyl from Hobby Lobby. They're about maybe $1.99 a piece. Took me 2 pieces to do the paws, so $4. They worked alright. You could probably get them on a half off sale if you catch it just right. As I prep to sew the beans on, I go out and finish the template and make sure that the little circles and arcs are there. That way I have something to sew against, or have a nice little template for me to sew against. I also then pin the vinyl into place with little pins. That way it doesn't move around on me quite as much. And this is where I learned that I really don't have great control with this sewing machine. If you make a slight little maneuver that you really didn't mean to, man, that machine shows it real quick. But overall, it's really not too horrible. I could see it really well though when I'm doing it. I started off using just normal scissors, but decided I should use the applique scissors. This helps keep the fur fibers in from really just cutting that seam that you just sewed on, making sure that you don't nip a little chunk off. And now I just work my way around, making sure that I get all the pieces nice and tight, that way I don't have any weird bunches along the way. I experiment quite a few different ways of sewing these on, because 2 circles works pretty well. You can kind of start at one end and kind of work your way all the way through. It's when you get the 3 circles that it gets kind of tricky. At this point, I'm just trimming out that seam allowance, making sure that the fingers are totally free, and all the way down to where they should be. I then take the top of the palm, or top of the hand, and pin it into place. I'm going to machine sew the wrist area, but beyond that, it's all sorts of hand sewing. Not a fun time. I then find some cotton fabric to use as a liner for the inside of the paws. I take the fabric, double it over, lay the template on it, and trace it out. That way, when I take it to the machine, all I have to do is sew it straight onto place. And then I have a nice little glove. Some of the more observant viewers may notice that these gloves don't quite match what I was just working on. That's because these are actually from Jinx, but I didn't record me cutting these out for Blood Moon, so here you go. Enjoy Jinx's gloves, because you may never ever actually see them. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go ahead and pin and sew the glove liner onto the paw. And this is a new one for me. All the Facebook forums and stuff like that I see, people talking about the fur getting caught in needles on the sewing machine. Well, I'd never had it happen to me before, but I'm experiencing it firsthand on this one. Like, man, it's breaking my thread, getting my bobbin stuck. Man, it's no fun. So I decide to try it again, and take it from the top, moving downward. Some of you guys know that I'm pretty bad at working ahead of the camera, so guess what? It happened again. So once again, enjoy another view of Jinx's paw attempt, as I demonstrate more or less what I had to do with Blood Moons, as I push the insides out. This may be the most difficult process overall, as you have to try to push the claw and the beans through the finger opening. But overall, just trust me, it's not that much fun at all. But once again, a good Sharpie, it really helps push these type things through. or maybe a small dowel or something. Now that the paws are inside out, I take some polyfill and stuff it down into the toes to help puff it up because they're somewhat deflated at the moment. As I mentioned towards the beginning of the video, you can see some of those claws are kind of somewhat janky. They're going off in different directions or sticking kind of straight up. But oh well, good enough. That was definitely a me issue and not a template issue. All I'm really going to say about this is, I attempted to use bias tape, something that I've never done before, and after getting home and pulling it out of the package, I realized I got the wrong type. So I decided, screw it, I'm going to go with it anyways, and well, it turned out pretty janky. Doesn't look good at all, but I did it, it closed up the hole, and in the end it's all going to be covered by the arm sleeve, so no big deal, at least for me. If it was for a commission or something, I'd have to totally redo this. I'll say bias tape, tight circles, basically the wrist, and trying to put into a machine, not a fun combination. It was just constantly getting caught in the fur. I didn't really know where things were. It was just really overall just painful and just finicky and fiddly. Ta-da! See how beautiful that is? Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. Well, as we're starting to wrap up here, I thank you guys for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. Well, I've got some paws. I've got some arm sleeves. You guys won't see that till the next video. I got a few stray strings I still need to clean up. But in the end, overall, it's coming together. I think I'm almost ready for Anthro Week in Utah coming up in July. I have my paws, arm sleeves, and I think I just need to work on maybe some new foot paws, because overall I feel like I'm pretty much where I want to be. Well, thank you guys all for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again. Please like and subscribe.